Hey everyone, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday we welcome, like I always say, outsider and transgressive authors, and then there's a fight about what qualifies as transgressive. But every Friday we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work with us. And it's Friday, so we're doing this fucking thing again. First up tonight is Blick. Chat.
Okay, thanks. This is a piece that was published last month in Terra House. It's called Lunar Lament. At night, the wind blows without great force, but the slight, constant breeze makes it necessary for her to wear the cloth overcoat. It's a fine overcoat, a happy coat given to her by a happy mother. She cannot pull the sides of the coat together to button up anymore, yet every night she tries. The coat is worn and shiny, and she likes how the moon sometimes reflects off the worn material. It makes it sparkle and gives additional luster to her words. She folds her arms across her chest, covertly tugging at the coat lapels, trying to stretch the material so the button will slip into a hole. Frustrated by her failure to mate the button with the hole, she directs her anger at the wind, blaming it, and not her fat, for the chill slithering up her exposed house dress. The anger has made her glad, and she mumbles as her footsteps crunch on the driveway. When she twists her ankle in a pothole, the mumbling gives way to a cackling staccato. She falls silent and she reaches the end of the driveway. The overgrown weeds at the foot of the pavement can be dangerous, especially at night. She makes hissing sounds at the foliage. No rodent accepts her challenge. Chilled yet confident, she looks at her watch. It is 5:13 a.m. It is late, her latest time since early spring. Her anger returns. She pivots and faces her house. The rotting beams and sunken porch push the house out towards her in a decayed slope. The broken stained glass windows, whipped by thick branches, do not have moonlight to advertise their faded glory. She cannot see the twinkling reds and blues. There is only darkness and the slashing of leaves scratching glass. Aye! Aye! You killed my mother! Aye! Bastards! Not me! Bastards! Aye! Can't fool me because you killed my mother! Aye! Bastards! Filthy, sneaking bastards! I'll tell the doctor! I'll tell the doctor right now! I know! They killed my mother again! I know! Police! Police! Aye! Treat it! Clean it! Bastards! I know! I knew! Aye! She spins, shivering her voice, rising an octave with each scream. The words, smothered by her screams, explode from her throat in a cacophony of taunt, stretched squeals. Her throat burns, yet her voice rises steadily until its pitch can only be heard by dogs. She flaps her arms as she stares at the apartment building across the street. After a pause, her shrinking continues. From his second-floor apartment inside the building, Tommy Emerage looks at his clock and sighs. She was late, that was all. Nothing to be alarmed about. Now he can relax. Tommy despises sleeping and is thankful at his age that he requires only 3 hours of it. He fears sleep as much as she fears a nightly demon that propels her onto the curb. Tommy recognizes the sound of fear that makes him less afraid when it isn't just a silent throbbing inside his chest. Sometimes Tommy attempts to understand the old woman's screaming story about her mother, but it's not that important to him anymore. When he relaxes his interpretive inclination and simply listens to a voice, it becomes a kind of soothing litany, like a religious chant, where the sounds, not the words, are what moves him. Listening to her nightly bouts with fear encourages him. He mouths each of her screams. Tommy would like to scream, but he has a bad heart, a very bad heart. He can't scream, so he must pass his evening listening to the erratic heartbeat that is just waiting for the chance to stop. Tommy knows the heartbeat will want to stop when he is asleep and can offer no resistance. The louder and more frantic her screams, the more stress he places on his respiratory system, dwindling his energy until he drops off into an exhausted sleep. When he awakens a few hours later, he is proud of not having given up those 3 hours without a fight. Tommy knows that as long as he is willing to fight fear, the battle will continue. He isn't sure if his resisting makes sleep respect him enough to overpower him for only a few hours, or if sleep enjoys the skirmishes and does not wish them to end. The sudden crash of bursting glass ends the screams filtering into his bedroom window. Tommy pulls himself up to his window in time to see the heavy woman in the cloth overcoat fall to the pavement. Splinters of glass from her beer bottle prick her legs, forming warm, thin lines of red that stain the sidewalk by her feet. "Shut the fuck up," yells a male voice from the apartment beneath Tommy. The woman looks up at Tommy's neighbor. "Aye!" she howls. An empty jar of spaghetti sauce explodes just inches away from her head. "You stupid bitch, get the fuck back inside. I gotta get my sleep." From a window above Tommy's, a female voice calls out, "Why don't the cops do something about her? Look at her. My son says she shoots beavers all the time." Tommy stares down at the bleeding woman. When he sees her look up, he ducks his head. After a brief pause, he peeks up at the window. A third tenant's voice joins in. "With all the goddamn money she's supposed to have, you'd think she could afford a muzzle or something." "I'll muzzle that witch," shouts a young voice. The apartment building spits out a water balloon filled with urine. It lands with deadly accuracy on the screaming woman's shoulder, splattering up into her face. "That'll piss her off," the youngster shouts out. A chorus of tenants' voices laugh their approval. A police car pulls up. Two officers, each biting into a donut, approach the prostrated woman. They gag at her smell and toss their breakfast into the street. An arrogant rat retrieves the discarded donut and greedily chews them underneath a battered 1998 Honda Civic. The policemen are reluctant to help the woman to her feet. Rubber gloves are snapped over their hands. They frown at each other and look up at the building behind them. Every window seems to have a head attached to it, shouting down at them to drag the woman off, to take her away. "No, don't take her, whispers Tommy. "Please let it be." The sky is a dull gray. Daylight is swallowing the night. As a woman is stiffly raised to her feet, a roar of approval showers down on the reluctant police officers. The cops, holding the moist and foul-smelling woman at arm's length, face the tenement and execute a mock bow. It excites the tenement crowd, and they scream even louder. The building seems to tremble, but what is really trembling is the woman's right arm. While the policemen are bent at the waist, she lunges at the holster of the officer bowing to her left. She's surprised how easy it is to lift the gun from his belt. By the time the policemen complete their curtsy, the screams of approval have become screams of terror. Every head from every window ducks to the floor. Every head, that is, except Tommy Ehrman's head. He's frozen at his windowsill. The woman looks up at his window. They make eye contact. A crisp crack and the tapping of glass stuns Tommy. He looks down on the officer to the woman's right, who is aiming his gun at her. Tommy is sure that the cop has just shot the woman. A burning sensation in his neck distracts him, but he can see the woman dropping to the ground, as if in slow motion, clutching her side. Tommy feels dizzy and staggers back. His feet crumble and he bangs his head against the headboard. The pain in his neck disappears, but now he's having a hard time breathing. An irritating cough soon turns into a choke, and Tommy is laying on the floor, spitting up blood. "That son of a bitch shot me. She shot me. God damn her." Tommy would like to call out for help, but he can't speak. All he can do is spit blood. His wheezing is loud, and each exhale is accompanied by an impressive propulsion of fluid. Tommy feels tired, very tired, but he will not sleep. Tommy grabs the headboard with both hands and pulls himself up. He feels more confident now. His breathing seems to be stabilizing. Perhaps all the blood pouring out his nose and throat is decongesting his lungs. But this damn dizziness is frightening. He does not want to feel so dizzy. Tommy strains to hear the sounds of the outside world, the sounds of rescue and comfort, but all he can hear is his labored breath and vomiting. Tommy doesn't understand why the room is getting darker. He knows that the sun must have risen by now. His globular reading light burns on his night table right above his head, but it looks as if it's hundreds of feet away. The round lamp glows like a distant moon. Tommy Ramage's head is spinning so fast he closes his eyes. Tommy doesn't want to close his eyes, but with his eyes shut, he can concentrate better on his hearing. He strains to listen for sounds of help and relief. yet the only noise he can make out is the frantic pounding of his heart. A large weight seems to have dropped on Tommy's chest, and he opens his mouth as wide as he can, gulping air. By the time the attendants strap him in, Tommy's frozen lips are a circle of blue. As they lift him up into the ambulance, a sudden gust of wind floats the fabric, exposing his face. His exhausted eyes reflect the daylight, and dozens of heads staring down at him from their window ledges. And that's the end of my Christmas tale.
That was riveting, Blick. And I love the way that you've structured this piece, especially like with a knowledge of the other work you've read here, because often your pieces are very tightly focused on a single narrator, usually a single kind of untrustworthy or unreliable narrator, right? And you do something really clever here, which is I fully thought that's exactly what I was going to get from this piece, something very similar to your previous pieces in that regard, because you're slowly introducing this woman, right? And you're slowly introducing the details that let us know that there's something not right about her, that she's broken in some way. And then and your performance of this, and then the scream, right? And her screaming doesn't just like wake up the neighborhood, but it wakes up like a whole bunch of additional characters that suddenly flood into this piece, including Tommy, right? And suddenly you have all these additional perspectives, and the way it's structured and the content, like the actual plot and content here, dovetail together so perfectly. I don't know. I loved it. It's fantastic.
Oh, well, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Black. And I guess I have a feeling we've got this won't be the only happy Christmas piece that we're going to hear tonight. I see someone else in costume, so let's buckle up here. And we have one more show to go, I think, before Christmas too. So we may get more. Okay, so thank you so much, Blick. Up next is up next is Todd. Speaking of the Christmas piece.
Well, that'll be tough to follow. This isn't exactly a Christmas story. I'm just wearing this because I got a job as a mall Santa.
It's all yours, Todd.
Okay, here we go. Kill Barney by Todd Matthews. All the kids on the playground talked about killing Barney, but I was the only one with the cojones to actually get it done. I snuck out of our trailer in the dead of night and hitched a ride down to Dallas, where the Barney studio was. This was back in 2009. I just turned 7. My mom and my stepdad were passed out on booze or dope or whatever on the couch. I made myself a couple bologna sandwiches and tossed them in a paper sack with some ding-dongs and a 4-pack of Oreos. Carefully, I placed the sack lunch in my backpack along with a flashlight, 2 cans of Diet Mountain Dew, and my stepdad's Bowie knife. Then I walked past the couch and out the door. They didn't wake up, just laid there drooling on themselves. It was pathetic. It took an hour or so to walk to the Cracker Barrel by the entrance to the interstate. I sat on a rock by where the trucks pull in, and this guy with no legs in a rusty Corolla picked me up right away. He had fake metal legs he used to press the gas and brake pedals, which I thought was pretty awesome. His car was filled with empty Coke cans, and the ashtrays overflowed with ash and cigarette butts. "You want a Coke?" the guy asked. "Sure," I said. He cracked open a can and handed it over. "Can I have a cigarette too?" I asked. "Damn, kid, you already smoke?" said the man. "Shit, yeah," I said. I smoked my mom's Virginia Slims all the time. Sometimes my stepdad's Cools, but I had to be careful with those. If he ever noticed any were missing, there'd be hell to pay. This was before everyone started vaping. I hate that shit. Vaping is for pussies and fags, and no one else. From Paul's Valley to Dallas, it's a 2-hour drive. The guy lived in Sulphur, but he said what the hell. He wasn't doing anything anyway. He told me he was on disability. He couldn't work on account of the fact that he lost both legs in Vietnam. He said he was never married, but that sometimes he went to Oklahoma City to have a Chinese hooker masturbate him in a massage parlor. I smoked 7 of his Marlboros and drank 3 Cokes. He gave me a pack of raspberry zingers, too, for the road. I put the zingers in the front pouch of my backpack for easy access. I was going to stick them in my sack lunch, but I didn't feel like unzipping everything. I almost thought the guy was going to try and get me to masturbate him, like one of those hookers from the massage parlor, but he didn't. He was a nice guy. When we pulled up in front of the studio, it was still dark out. I told the guy I was going to be on TV, and that's why I needed the ride. I'm not sure he really believed me, but what did he care? So long, kid, he said. Sayonara, sucker, I replied. I opened the passenger door and hopped out. 5 or 6 Coke cans clattered out after me. I slammed the door shut and the car sped away. Then I snuck into the studio and waited for Barney. You think Barney's a pushover when you see him on TV. All he does is sing those stupid songs and teach kids about math. But in real life, he's an imposing presence. He's a goddamn T-Rex after all. You know how big those things are? How fearsome? Each of his teeth was as big as my head. Giant claws like daggers. Back in his dressing room, they fed him whole troughs full of rabbits. I know this because I saw them wheel one in on a dolly. There were 30 or 40 rabbits in the trough, all stacked on top of each other, eyes wide, wiggling their noses frantically. I think they all knew what was about to go down, but were powerless to stop it. I waited until the assistants wheeled the empty trough back out of the room before making my move. Stealthily, I crept into the dressing room and hid beneath a chair. Barney was huddled in the corner, too focused on the syringe sticking out of his arm to notice my entrance. He kept pulling the needle out and sliding it back in. I guess he couldn't find the vein. Every time he missed, he'd mutter a few curse words under his breath. Flecks of greenish spittle sputtered from the edges of his mouth. Finally, he gave up trying the arm and went for one of the veins in his foot. Barney was massive. That's something that gets lost on TV, too. He's tall, yeah, but he's also fat, engorged, swollen, like late career Brando, only purple. To get to his foot, he had to lie on the floor on his side and curl up in the fetal position. It was sad. I saw him poke the needle through the scales on his foot, then ease the plunger back. The blood that squirted into the chamber was pink, like Pepto-Bismol. He pushed the blood back into himself and coughed, then rolled onto his back in ecstasy. His head lolled all the way back against the floor, and he looked right at me, hiding beneath my chair. Our eyes met. He didn't miss a beat. "Hey, kid," said Barney, licking his lips. "Kid, you want to fucking suck my dick? It's fucking huge, man. Dinosaur dick. You wouldn't believe it." He laughed. "And guess what? I jizz fucking ice cream. Isn't that nuts? I got ice cream for jizz. You're gonna love it. Fucking white chocolate Haagen-Dazs ice cream with raspberry fudge ripple swirl. You want to try some? You want to lap it up? Just milk it out. Get over here and milk it out. Milk it right out of my dick, you little fucker. I can tell you want it, you little cocksucker. Get out from under there. Come on, kid. Don't waste my time." So I didn't. Waste any time, that is. The dressing room floor was carpeted in half-crunched rabbit bones and clumps of blood-matted fur. I army crawled through the filth with my stepdad's knife clenched between my teeth. Barney was 40 feet long from snout to tail. Lying on his back, his chest rose a full 6 feet off the floor. I had to climb him like a tree. Weird, stiff funguses grew from between his ruddy scales. I used these as handholds to pull myself up onto his chest. I could feel his rapid breath beneath me as he enjoyed his rush. He barely even noticed I was on top of him. His eyes rolled back in his head until the pupils disappeared. All that was left were the whites, shot through with ribbons of roomy pink. My breath caught in my throat. I wouldn't admit it then, or for years afterward, but I was terrified. Barney's mouth hung open. His sharp teeth glistened. If I fell forward, I'd fall right into them. I'd fall right down Barney's throat. I'd disappear into nothingness, lost forever in the abyss. I removed the knife from my teeth and held it over my head. "Please, God, let my aim be true," I whispered. "Shit," Barney said, finally seeing me. "Just do it, kid. Fucking kill me. See if I care, asshole." I plunged the knife deep into his neck, all the way to the hilt. Barney growled and gurgled and flopped his head back and forth. Otherwise, he didn't put up much of a fight. I think he was probably ready to die. You don't get to the point where you're shooting up meth on the floor of your dressing room if you're a happy person. I sawed back and forth over and over, all the way around Barney's head. I dug the knife in deep to sever the spinal column. Barney's pink blood coagulated as it gushed from the wound. It hardened to a texture somewhere between chewed bubblegum and blackhead pus. It was up to my shoulders by the time I'd finished. I sat there for a while in the pink goo, panting and sweating. Then I used a bathrobe I found draped over Barney's chair to wipe some of the blood from my arms and chest. Barney's head was too big to fit in my backpack. Plus, I didn't want his blood to get on my flashlight or my sack lunch. There was an oversized gym bag in the dressing room closet, and I shoved the head into that. Then I sat down in Barney's chair and began to eat my sandwiches. Things were different for me after that. Everything changed. No one called me a baby anymore. They never spat on me or called me names. The girls on the playground didn't chase me or try to kiss me or put me in the birdie boiler anymore. Nobody pushed me off the monkey bars ever again. I used my stepdad's knife to skin Barney's head. Once his leather was tanned, I started wearing Barney's skin mask on the playground to show everyone who I was, what I was capable of. I wore that thing every day for years. It was awesome. I wrapped my Louisville Slugger in barbed wire and dragged it on the ground behind me everywhere I went. The teachers were too scared to say anything. The other kids just left me alone. I could show up to school or not. It was my choice. My stepdad stopped hitting me. He let me take as many cools as I wanted. When I started getting hard-ons a couple years later, I began to fuck him too, in his sleep, when he was nodded out on dope. I think he liked it. He'd wake up rubbing his ass, and I'm sure he noticed my seed leaking out of him when he went to take a shit. But he never did anything about it, never said a word. He knew who the boss was. They all did. I know I'm lucky. A lot of people don't get a happy ending. Barney didn't. But you don't get a happy ending without causing a few sad ones. I don't feel bad about Barney, not even a little. I wouldn't ask for his forgiveness if I saw him, which I will someday, I guess, in hell. But even then, I won't apologize. Because for me to live, he had to die. For me to grow, I had to betray him. It's a tale as old as frost, as old as the wind. I'm sure Barney gets that. On some level, we all do. It's survival of the fittest out there. Eat or be eaten. That's the law of the universe, of nature, and of God. I live with my grandma now. Both my parents are dead. We watch Hallmark Channel during the day and baseball or tennis in the afternoons. I boil eggs in the morning. We eat egg salad all day, then ice cream and chocolate milk for supper. My grandma's insane, but I love the old bag. She just sits in her chair all day in silence. She doesn't look at me or talk or acknowledge my presence, except once every evening when I kiss her goodnight. Then my lips brush against her wilted, wrinkly cheek, and her watery eyes well up with emotion. Her thin lips curl upwards in a weary approximation of a smile, and she speaks 16 words each night. Never more, never less. Good night, honey, she croaks. Sleep well. And always remember, it's a great life if you don't weaken.
Oh my fucking God. Oh my, I always say like, oh my God, are you trying to kill me? But I think tonight you were trying to kill Blick. I see Blick, Blick's, oh my God. Holy shit. So that, I don't know, that was fucking hilarious. And every line of that was pitch fucking perfect. From the beginning, the opening to the end. And the way it just like, every time I thought, oh, I get what the joke is, the joke got more elaborate and more perverse and more surreal and more horrifying and funnier somehow as well. It's fucking amazing. I hope Blick is doing okay. I would hate for this.
I just want to say, I mean, I was losing my breath. I thought I was going to need a defibrillator. But, you know, my daughters grew up this body, and he just did my body fantasy, you know? I mean, it was, I have such a personal thing with, is this published?
No, I just wrote it the other day.
Ah, fuck! I want to send it to. I got to send it to my kids as a Christmas.
Well, because I was thinking for some reason about how like kids on the playground at a certain point, like you have to decide that you want to kill Barney and in really violent ways. And everyone
Right.
there's like nursery rhymes about it. And it's like the
Yeah.
way you prove that you've moved from like being a baby into being like the next phase or whatever.
It's like
But like
it's adolescent circumcision in a way, right?
nobody ever really did it.
No, but you're
Well,
right.
thanks,
Like,
thank you guys.
oh, sorry. Every fucking I remember that growing up on the playground too. Everyone had a little rhyme about killing Barney, and it's remarkable, isn't it? It's like an Oedipal thing or something. Like, no, but thank you so much, Todd.
I-
And Rudy, I feel like I interrupted you.
Well, can I just say something quick?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure,
the
absolutely.
fact
Sure,
that
sure.
the fact that that perfect performance delivery in that Santa outfit is like, that should be videotaped and sent out in film festivals. It's that fucking good, that monologue. And in that outfit, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, you really brightened up the holiday. Thanks so much, Todd.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Flick.
Yeah, Todd, that was
United
amazing.
Oh, sorry, Rudy.
Yeah, just the way it turns like sharply at the end too, to be more like morose and just outright just like sad and kind of, but still like, man, some of the lines there, like the one, fuck, I had it in the chat, but basically like there's some real heavy hitters there, like the fucking, like the happy endings thing, like you can't get a happy ending without without making a couple of sad endings. That one really got me. That was fucking amazing.
Oh, if you guys like that story and you haven't read Hog by Samuel Delaney, I feel like it's very like the really foul type kid narrator. It's like I feel like that in
I
my
need to read
brain is
Hog so
right where
bad.
it came from.
Yeah, I can vouch for Hog too. Honestly, I like the narrator. The narrator's name I think is Cocksucker in Hog, and he's a
Right.
kid.
Yeah, and he's 11.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Todd. Up next is Jesse with some poems. Let me see if I got the link. There's the link.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say welcome to the new people because I've been trying to get them to come for a few weeks, and I'm glad to see that they made it. I know it's late, so welcome. I'm going to read 3 poems that were published in a place called DFL Lit, which stands for Dead Fucking Last. Hold on a second. The first poem is called Mood Lens. Call the forensic experts, have them investigate every day stretching 11 years back down the wavy time tunnel to capture a glimpse of the mood disorder in its habitat. Not in a random photo strobe, but in a motion picture, me asking, what was that movie maker's name who proved all 4 of the horse's hooves left the dusty monochrome earth at the same time? Or trapped the slow motion of Gilded Age nudists before that gridded wall, Victorian science erotica. I generally was having an okay day, but I couldn't understand how just a few nights of sleep and all enthusiasm, attitudes, ideas alter until there is no footprint of dust tracking identical through all my days. The faucets drip to fight the freeze, manages to look flickery, like strobes, either one frame too slow or one too fast to be caught by rolling cameras. And this one vertical thread of falsehood spreads to the whole cosmic frame surrounding. The universe is a blockbuster picture shot through a mood lens. So a glitch is created with all the doubt that's necessary for me to run with it. The next poem was called Heist. Figure out the best way to talk to me. I've got a Beretta in your back. We pulled off the heist together, yes, but now this is the heist within the heist. My share of the bullion in a chest in the back of my F-150. Or I press this button and a cloud of tiger moths will burst from your favorite henchman's chest. No matter where you go or how you fortify your life's crawl spaces, someone will always be watching, holding each animal of the Chinese zodiac hostage in turn, just waiting for my word. When you come to the meet at the abandoned quarry, come alone. Otherwise, I'll vanish and I'll rob from you all your stored up facial recognition so that after you die in gunfire, upon entering the promised land, you'll wonder who the gathered platform crowd is waiting to embrace. And my last poem is called What is the Plural of Cosmos? The senses can be added to, but only to a point. And then, like needle shafts of conifers approaching too close to the forest path, they must be trimmed back. People, even poets, are only handed 5 or 6 senses at a time, out of which to peer at one cosmos at a time. So, what is the plural of cosmos? Even while dreaming, the poet's eyes or hands can only mold Nadezhda's sloping breasts from outside. They cannot shape the airy cosmos from within the twin recesses of her inverted chest, from heart, through ribcage outward, through breast, through bra, through KGB microphone, through blouse, through overcoat and scarf, and then out into the outer world of wintry plaza, where a blue Zaporozhets will cough monoxide wisps into the troika's face or faces. On the KGB tape, the trochees of Nadezhda's heartbeat match the echoes of a sled dog's barks a verse away. When you're a poet, no one just approaches you and tells you. You must deduce your fate from among the 555 clues that, like feathers off the invisible peacock, the cosmos shed at you. The cosmos shed at you. The cosmos sheds at you. Back up out of the grammatical cul-de-sac where the subject-verb agreement graphs, backing into verbs, knocking them over. You were distracted, watching the adjective fuck the noun. You're a voyeur for that. Are you bothered by the syntactic view into my transparent skulls? Reverse your steps up the forest path. Unscissor the conifer needles back into place.
Holy shit, Jesse, these are so fucking good. I haven't read much of your poetry, actually, besides the pieces that we published a little while back, but these are so fucking good. And these 3 poems are so clearly and obviously of a set, too. Like, sometimes you'll see, like, it'll say, like, 7 poems or, 10 poems by this author or whatever, and you'll flip through them and you'll say, oh, I can see the author's style throughout these, and I can kind of see why the author decided these poems should go together. But with these 3 poems, they hang together and evolve from one to another so perfectly. Like the way that you're using like pulp and genre and the history of cinema throughout is so good here. And that's the 3rd poem is phenomenal and the 1st poem is phenomenal, but the 2nd one like fucking had my attention. Like it so perfectly like captures that fantasy, right? The like Machiavellian fantasy, the almost like childish Machiavellian fantasy, but it captures it with such vivid and unique language. And it captures that like it takes that like often very corny and very cheesy image of the like scheming like Bond mastermind and turns it into fucking literature in just a gorgeous way that I really appreciate. So these were great, Jesse. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you, William, and thanks everybody for your comments in the chat. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Courtney is up next.
Hi.
Hey, Courtney. So,
Hi.
so you have, I think, oops, I just want to make sure I put this in the right chat. You have a short prose piece, I think you said, that it's a work in progress one that you just finished, right?
Yeah, literally like 20 minutes before this, I wanted to write something, so I wrote something, so I decided to read it anyway before I send it out. So this
Awesome.
is a
Yeah.
burnt toast. The cashier gave me the bullets with my change. Happy Death Day. Excuse me? She looked at me quizzically. I said, have a good day. One of the employees came over with a gun as I left the store. Don't lose your head. I looked at him. Sorry? Was it something we said? I pushed my trolley to the taxi waiting at the front. Piles of bleach clumped together. The driver exited the car and walked around to the side. His hand was full of round yellow pills. Overdose? Huh? Would you like some toast? There was a plate with buttered toast resting on the boot of his car. Blobs of grease licked his lips as he chewed the slice after slice. It seemed to replenish itself. My jeans started to stick like shrink wrap, and I could feel my heart dancing. I took a bottle of bleach, opened it, and started drinking it as though I hadn't had anything to drink in weeks. Taxi man didn't seem to notice, but the homeless man certainly did. You got rope? Again, I gave out another incredulous look. Rope? No, have you got hope? Damn girl, you got death wish. I giggled. I lifted my head, staring straight at the sun. A fellow shopper dropped her bags on the floor, sending bottles of ketchup and vodka across the car park. She ran over to me with a camping chair. Do you need a chair? I sat down as I watched her small children smash open a ketchup bottle and make finger paintings on the tarmac. A chair would be nice, thank you. No, sweetheart, do you need a fare? She nodded towards a taxi driver, licking the butter off his fingers. I shook my head and she ripped the chair out from underneath me, sending me flat on my ass into the shards of glass. Her children cried as I had just ruined their artwork. Suddenly, the entire supermarket came running out of the store with first aid kits and mobile phones. My head felt like it had been caved in, and my legs weren't working. I looked up to see a man screaming. A tub of butter lay upside down on my chest. She just ran out. I couldn't stop. That's it.
That's so good. I love how perfectly you capture like the psychology of intrusive thoughts here, right? Like as someone who's had his share of depressed, intrusive, suicidal thoughts, I love the way that you like capture that, and you capture like the tension between reality and the like dire intrusive thought. And I love the way like the reality of this piece comes apart and then comes back together. It's very well structured and very well written. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you.
Up next is Katie.
Hi everyone. Can people hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you
Amazing.
pretty clearly.
Amazing. Okay, thanks everyone. So I'm going to read 4 poems about Vikings, basically.
Katie,
So
sorry, I just wanted to know, do you want me to tweet this out? Because I know it's the OneDrive link. I wasn't sure.
Nah, let's leave it. So
Okay.
yeah, 3 of them are from my chapbook that's out at the moment. And then one of them I just wrote just cause I think it's up on the Bear Creek Patreon somewhere. But so the first one is called Gudrun, about a figure of Icelandic legend who I think is a bit of a hero. Many centuries ago, Gudrun, daughter of Giuki, was married to King Atli against her will. Her brothers slain, she waited years long for revenge, butchered her sons and served them to their father, and walked away, finally free, flames from the hall staining the sky behind her. Imagine nursing such pain, such purpose, that you'd gladly turn on your own future Toss the brand that sets your roof alight. Monday, 7:59 a.m. Leaves blow across the platform. The air is bitter. My coffee's growing cold. One more minute, one step forward, and I could bring these tired gables crackling down onto my head. Listen, you can hear it coming. You can already smell the smoke. And the second poem here is called Nastrans. Nastrans is one of the visions of hell that lies beyond the apocalypse. Nastrans. There is a hall that stands far from the sun. Its doors face north. Its walls are made from woven snakes. Heads turned inwards, they spit rivers of poison. A cold wind through the kitchen window. I focus on each breath as the edge in your voice sharpens and the tiled floor under my feet begins to lurch. I'd steady myself, but I know my hand will rest on scales where the bricks should be. And the next one is called Sleipnir, which is about Odin's 8-legged horse. Sleipnir. Sleipnir was the best of horses. His mother was Loki, who had turned himself into a mare for a single night. Sleipnir carried the gods through the places where sea and sky meet, across the barriers between worlds. At dusk, I will walk along the beach, and I will imagine that I am no longer confined by sea or shore or earth or sky or smoke or father or mother. I will feel my 8 hooves thundering through the sand, and the salt and the spray and the clouds in my mane. I will know the joyful passage from sphere to sphere and back again. How sweet it is to fly across all bounds, to go to hell and know that I was just passing through. And the final poem I have for you is called Crying Pant Day, which started life as an inside joke, but it's basically a story about a pair of sentient killer trousers told in the style of Beowulf. So yeah, buckle up. What? Legend tells of the day, the one day in this lonely globe's journey, this Earth sphere's pilgrimage in its quest for the memory of its creator in the heavens, when the pants stir from the depths, the shriving dark of the closet. Lowly they creep, away from that generous guardian of sweaters, sock ward and shirt giver, shunning their rightful home in the sweet warm dark of their lord, adorned with skirt and garter, one leg at a time. They remember a day long ages back when they were favoured above all hosiery. Where is the trouser press now? Where the belt? Forlorn, they contemplate their doom. They sit on the kitchen counter and they weep, tears of bright fabric softener, course a lonely journey to that dread linoleum that will receive us all. Beware, traveller. Do not let their tears prize out your pity. Do not stretch out your hand, adorned with ring and Rolex, or you will find yourself choked by dire leg sleeves, the flesh current of your throat crumbling, forsaken in the eyes of God, trousered and without a leg to stand on. Thank you.
Holy shit, those were fantastic. I love what you're doing here, the way that you're like marrying the mythological and the modern. These poems are, the way these poems are presented is really intricate and really wonderful, because they very much lull you into the false sense of, oh, this is a purely mythological piece, right? Oh, this piece is set 800, 1,000 years ago in the distant foggy past, and then boom, you're struck with a modern detail, and boom, you're struck with like contemporary relevance, and you're like grabbed and pulled. It's fantastic. I love how these are structured. They're so good. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, I really like the trousers one. We had a piece that we published on MT recently. It was about a hanger. I won't say any more in case anybody reads it, but and it, it reminds me of that one a lot because it's very like very much the clothes are clothes, but also other things and like pieces of the people wearing them, and like I can just it's that one is awesome. I love some of the lines in it, like the tears of bright fabric softener. That one is pretty great.
And the line immediately after that one, the lonely journey to that dread linoleum that receives us all. Damn.
Yeah.
Like what a bleak like image of death. Like what's more depressing than linoleum? An eternity spent like flayed out on the linoleum. That's just so, and it strips all the mythological like potency and like that hope of like the eternal kingdom or whatever away and replaces it with a sheet of shitty linoleum. I love it. It's so good. But thank you,
just
Katie.
ask?
Thank you so much. Oh,
I just ask in the first poem, the floor buckled. Was that a linoleum floor that buckled? It was I was so engrossed with it.
I think it might have been. I'm told I write far too much about kitchens. I don't think I like kitchens.
No, but the linoleum. Okay, it was. I was so engrossed with it. I couldn't break away to write down certain phrases that you did because it was so hypnotic.
Okay. Okay. Oh no, it's tiles. It's tiles. So yeah, they could be linoleum tiles. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
no, thank you, Katie. And Forrest is up next.
Hey guys.
Hey, Forrest.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
You are a little soft, and I hate to say that because I don't know how.
How are we now?
To go down just a little bit now.
We did this again. Okay.
Perfect.
Mic check.
Wherever you're at right now.
Okay.
Sorry
All
about
right.
that, Forrest.
No, it's my fault. It's my everything's broken. Actually, I've broken nearly every appliance in the apartment, and then I broke my arm as soon as I arrived in the Netherlands. And also, I've really enjoyed the pieces so far, but I can't really participate because typing is re-injuring my arm. So, but now I've set myself up to read quite a bit of the manuscript I'm working on. So I'm going to go straight through to these letters that I've promised. It's this epistolary story where the father is, his son has come home after dropping out of school and then some extended period of absence and estrangement, quite sick. The mother and father discovered that the son was working as a prostitute for someone very powerful, a politician, and the politician begins threatening the son. So the father's way out of it is to write this novel as a kind of catch and kill thing, because the son has been threatening to publish the material he has, which are mostly letters exchanged with the politician, as a sort of blackmail, or perhaps just to get his rocks off. And so I said before that some of this is true and some of it's not, and I'm going to say that I don't know which part is true and which is not tonight, because we're going to get to the letters that I think that I want them to seem true, but I don't know. So we're just going to go. Right now, Glenn, the grief counselor, is in his basement. His wife has been away for about 18 hours probably, and he's sitting there with his son's pornography and trying to work himself out of the erotic quagmire. So Quite simply, what I'm going to do with what follows is myself publish the emails my son exchanged with you, Jules, and the surrounding story of your love affair, gathering the source material from my son's digital devices as well as from my own field work, and do so in a manner that does not endanger you in any way by being absolutely sure that you remain completely anonymous. After it is written, I will protect my manuscript with copyright, publish it in some out-of-the-way place, and label it fiction, so that if my son ever so much has in any modicum of any inclination to try and create the autobiographical artwork that he intended to, as he said, display in public, I will simply slam shut the door on his fledgling artistic aspirations with my own more legitimate cease and desist order. And in the end, the emails that you exchange with my son, which could reveal your arcane desires to the voting public, in fact, will exist solely as a middle-aged man, myself, attempting his hand at novel writing during the sunset of his career. Catch and kill, I have come to understand, is what this legal maneuver is called in the publishing business. Perhaps you've heard of it. As I'm sure you can guess, I've been researching your history with the tabloids, noting the way the scandals have waxed and waned during your tenure. And let me assure you, I am not and will not pretend to be as media savvy as you are, Jules. I'm sure you have a team of assistants and crack interns. I'm guessing some toe-headed, effete Ivy League graduates that you are grooming much in the same way you did my son. And these sorts of issues are ones that you make quietly and effectively disappear with some frequency. I am open to negotiations with you on the particulars of the arrangement, but as my legal counsel suggested, I am now creating a composition that will negate any chance for my son to publish the following material in some way as nonfiction or indeed his own fiction, because now this information is mine, yours and mine alone, Jules. So just as long as you are not the type of pervert who is not satisfied until the semen-stained panties representing your illicit acts are hung like a flag above the Capitol building to broadcast your naughty acts for all the world to see, I will promise to do my best to keep from self-destructing and sending the contents of Valerie's emails account to the friend of a friend who works for the Post and whom would in all likelihood offer good money for the information we both wish to keep concealed deep in the repressed memories of 4 individuals. In all earnestness, publishing a novel is something I'm wool-gathered about in my younger days, before I met my wife and was burdened with the financial responsibility of raising a family. Now, however, I report to you with some joy. It seems I have gained the source material to create a novel and have done so without all the misery that most artists of my economic class seemingly suffer before embarking on the creative conquest. Not that I don't suffer. Indeed, I do. I suffer immensely. My experience is inundated by the grueling drone of poverty, addiction, violence, and death, while consoling grief in rural America. My suffering should not be underestimated. I suffer every single day, up through the night and into my dreams, absorbing the sins of the world like a whore in a downtown Manhattan massage parlor, the state-appointed slut to grief that I am. But now, perhaps, with the material I have earned by the right of fathering a young man near the turn of the second millennium, I have the opportunity to write a novel, much like my favorite novelists, namely Proust and Sebald, with both of whom quite psychoanalytically, in fact, draw the reader towards epiphanies hidden beneath the surface of the prose, epiphanies which more often than not have nothing to do with the plot at all. This is not to say that suddenly the old man turns up after years during which any notion of poetics lay dormant in the quiet recesses of his mind to suddenly become a master prose stylist that will usher in an entirely new form. No, rather, I am clumsily piecing together sentences from my clouded memories of my own experience and the experience of others, and much in the way Sebald masterfully reset the history of the 20th century's most horrifying events with inescapable empathy. I am working from impressions of objects I have encountered while putting around on my sabbatical, that material being, of course, the pornographic media you and my son so lovingly constructed together. With my son and with myself, I might add, one will need to not assure the readers, pagnia lascivica vita proba, as poets did in Roman times, to be sure the lives in questions are every bit as naughty as the pages which document them. You can imagine the horror my wife and I felt when we began combing through my son's bedrooms for clues about his decline. We were expecting to find stashes of drugs or weapons that could be used for suicide. Certainly, my son's use of dangerous drugs has been obvious in the past. Likely, he would have never had the gall to fall into the delusory relationships he was in with you, Jules, if it wasn't for whatever dangerous chemicals inundated his senses during the regrettable period of time. But instead of dangerous paraphernalia of a more traditional variety, my wife and I found Valerie. Oh, sure. We had our clues about our son's unusual sexual behavior. My wife is especially attuned to my son's waffling sexual orientation. And at one point, while I was reading aloud and somewhat astonished gaps from one of my son's journals that I found stashed in a drawer of ladies' undergarments, she screeched at me from across the room, "Are you kidding me? You didn't fucking know he was gay?" Well, it's not like I didn't have a clue, but sexuality can be fluid and change throughout the course of one's life, as you yourself may understand, Jules, what with the public image you put forth as a family man, coupled with your seemingly irrepressible desire for so-called ladyboys, my son. To be fair, I myself had my own period of sexual exploration during my youth. Really more research than exploration, I should say. Grief counselors aren't often faced with the question of sexual orientation in the way that many mental health professionals are. However, as a young man, when I had loftier goals, I was at one point hell-bent on proving Freud's theory that the potential for bisexuality is innate in each one of us. Well, there certainly is bisexual potential here, just as well as it is present in my son, but that potential, at least for me, flew out the window when I was faced with the more dire reality of raising a family. I certainly do not have the time or resources to be leading a double life, gallivanting around with whomever posts an ad on the internet, my son, the way you do, Jules. Although I must admit, I have grown a little envious reading through the emails that sparked your romance with Valerie, barring the inclusion of my son, of course. After my dear wife departed, I began digging through Valerie's inbox with some urgency, attempting to find a way to lift my family out of the erotic quagmire that my son has created from thin air. I have, from time to time, become lost in fantasy, wondering about certain details regarding your exploits with my son or otherwise. There are many details I suppose will remain forever unknown to me. Nevertheless, it is clear the internet has changed sex a great deal since I was actively seeking partners. There were no websites to solicit prostitutes of any variety when I was a bachelor, never mind specifically male prostitutes that would be willing to adorn themselves as a woman and spend days at a time producing writing in collaboration with their jaw's pornographic imagination, and furthermore, quite shockingly, especially for my poor wife, to dress as that John's daughter and to meet him at a movie theater in order to act out his incestuous fantasies in person. Well, I can say with your own, I can say that there is one point of your exploits I am not envious of, and that is your desire to have sex with your own daughter. I do not exaggerate when I say that my wife, in fact, retched as if about to vomit when she saw in writing my son agreed to perform these acts with you. The way she looked at me, my God, it was as if I had withheld the same secret about my daughter for all these years. I'm not judging you. Obviously, you're educated enough to understand that I believe the Oedipal law to be among the most basic preconditions of all civilization. And so much so, I must imagine that most of us, myself included, do not even begin to have fantasies that would cause the desire to have sex with one's offspring to become an unquenchable one, the way yours seems to have become, Jules. I do, as I said, reserve judgment. In fact, in a way, I'm envious of your freedom to transgress the most fundamental of laws. Your willingness to engage with these fantasies must liberate you in ways I can't even fathom. From a certain distance, and I am unfortunately not at the distance I would prefer, I can see how one could see beauty in the sexual hell you inhabit. Some elements I evidently find erotically thrilling, as I, shamefully enough, became aroused while tracing back to the tete-a-tete with my son. I suppose that this brings us well enough to the place where we can begin setting into stone the licentious materials that my son intended to use as blackmail against you, Jules, as the pure fiction that they are. I will start from what I gathered to be the moment you and my son met, through an ad on one of those websites where a person could click around and view the solicitations of prostitutes. I first encountered the ad while combing back through the entire history of Valerie's email account, and among one of the first messages received to her email address was under the heading, "Your ad has been posted." The ad, thankfully, is no longer published on the website. So what remains is the ad copy that my son wrote, which was included in the notification of the ad's publication, and which reads, just as my son wrote it, in the following way. Well, I love sex, and I love sex with strangers. I've had a few adventures that have started on this site. This site is good for me because sometimes I just want a bitch yuppie and his dumb girlfriend to lock a collar around my neck and then utterly destroy me. When I want that, I just type it here and I get an unending array of cocks to choose from. I have seen some nice ones come through my inbox, and the small amount of time I've spent fooling around here. I might fuck one of you reading this, or maybe I already have. The NYC online dating community is getting smaller and smaller. Know what I mean? Anyway, I'd just like to tell some stories and maybe send some illustrations to a stranger, not into meeting right now, because I am somewhat in love. My fantasy is to find a nice old man who has some money and wants to buy my stories on a regular basis. I love Aeneas then and want to live her life. My generation is so boring. Fantasies never work out the way I want them to on this site, though. I want to share a story, so ask me for one, and I'll send a sample. If you like it, you can commission one personalized just for you. You can share a story too if you also like to write. Women encouraged to reply, as well as men, and especially couples. I believe I can enhance anyone's sexual fantasies.
That was killer.
That's it.
Oh, sorry. That was killer. I love the way that your narrator is developing here. It's a great thing that so many like wonderful, unreliable narrators have, where there's that like thin veneer of pretension and nothing but like the most vacant ugliness underneath, right? And there's so many great like hilarious turns of phrase here, like the one where my son and then lady boys in parentheses, or it's lady boys and then my son in parentheses. That's great. And I put a few of them in the chat, but there are so many like moments that work because you spent so much time like establishing this author's like self-obsession and his pretensions and his like academic quasi credentials and all this shit, and then you start poking holes in it in just the funniest fucking way. And I'm so eager to hear more of this. And the ad that you ended it with, like the contrast between like the paragraphs and paragraphs of like rigid, like formal prose that came before it, and then the fucking ad is just so crass and nasty. It's beautiful, Forrest. Thank you. So Sylvie is up next. Oh, and Forrest, I hope your arm heals up.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the comment too. William.
No,
Great.
thank you, Forrest. Sylvie's up next.
Hi everyone. I just have a single poem. It's very short.
Sylvie, is there anything you'd like me to put in for your at Twitter? Do you have a Twitter account you want me to at?
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me speaking with this going?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. Okay. So the title is Devil Life Forms Lay Eyes on Us and Weep. To them, this is arrows. In a GIF abyss, you fast characters, you aspect ratios of alien trash, you teach it to yourself. Tell error to teach it to yourself. Flight. From us at whom they look and pray, exalt the goddess. They're all naked iconostasis. Lol. They're all run free to freaking play queen. And our intel says they say they're closed. Subject velocities caged in norms, strapped for cash. Peasantries. Lines of ants carrying Xanax. Shivers. Fired coefficients of millennia running kill streaks. Why don't they just quit? Oh, goddess, to what scorn, what treasure is owed such stubbornness? Oh, what? It's just complicated? Economy? What hell is even that? Why? That's it.
Oh my God. I love your use of language in this poems. I love the contrast of like all the like technological and social media jargon and the way it's structured, and then the end, the way it pulls the rug out from under everything that came before. It's a really well constructed poem. And once again, like your use of language in this really mirrors the kind of like disorienting like social media dystopia that we all have to inhabit constantly. So thank you so much, Sylvie. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Up next is Gecko.
Hello, hi.
Hey.
Hi. So, as a, first of all, sorry for my question English, and I translated a story from a collaboration writer. Yeah.
Gecko?
Yeah.
You may want to switch over to your other mic. I'm having some trouble hearing you on this one.
Yeah, of course. Just a moment.
Sure.
So just a moment. Do you hear me all right?
Oh, much better, much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I actually, this is my laptop, the other one, not the one that I use now. So it's regarding this translation. Well, it's the first draft, and I might have done a disservice to this story by translating it, as I said to some in the beginning prior to this recording. And if you notice any grammatical errors that do not fit, that aren't justified by the context, please do tell me and I'll appreciate it. So let's start. Humorous artist is a certain cool woman whom we find one spring autumn evening amidst the lights of the metropolis, while she shines with longing for those same lights. The spontaneous noon outing that day turned into all-day rejoicing with friends, whom she was encountering as they emerged from their dusk-lit houses to greet the lighting of the metropolitan lights. Together they walked the pink-shaded streets and drank red wine in the gardens warmed by smiling lips and eyes. Everyone was happy while thinking how they're having such a nice time, how this day is a top-notch experience, and how it's nicest to disappear in such an experience with thousands of other experiencers. One can do that only in a metropolis. So many colors, contents, and persons when melded in leisure, nowhere but in the majestic metropolis. Humorous artist thanking herself in her head for the opportunity to taste, of all places in the world, the multitude in the leadership of the developing differences, the metropolis. As night nears, the lights slowly go out. She stays with a couple of friends and thinks how convenient it would be to grab something for a snack. They stand on one of the side streets and look around. They go to sit at an eatery. There she finds nothing appetizing. That owner pours olive oil onto everything excessively. Then they go to the fruit kiosk, which is closing its wing. The fruits seem rotten, and the light of the naked bulb illuminates them ugly. Then one of the friends invites her to his place to eat. There are two boho cats in the apartment, and humorous artist is slightly disgusted to eat the food served. So she courtly nibbles on pistachio and sips some yogurt. She's left alone, i.e., she goes home excusing herself, hoping that on the way to she will catch a few more eateries working, for which she knows are offering the warm and the fresh even at the end of working hours. In the first one, however, she is denied a warm meal when an argument ensues, in which she requests a particular place by the window to sit there. In the second, though, she estimates that the fish she ordered can't really be that fresh. So when they can't find lemon to sprinkle on it, she leaves, having stolen a handful of peanuts to deceive the already swollen, muffled hunger. At the last eatery, she refuses a meal out of principle because on the wall across from the table she sat at, they hold a picture of a certain king whom she holds to be a criminal. Poor artist is crawling home as her stomach gurgles and tongue delves in her teeth in search of peanut skins. She comes home, serves herself a light dinner of what's found in the fridge. Barbadian prosciutto, Madagascan cheese garnished with Andalusian pepper, and Somali dates in milk of the Pakistani goat. Shortly after dinner, artist became thirsty. The food she consumed was quite salty. Since she doesn't drink tap water, she distressingly probes the minibar. All the purchased water is gone, and not a single spare bottle can be seen amongst the surfeit of wine, brandy, liqueur, whiskey, and sorbet. Artist is distressed and goes back out to the city center in search of a shop that sells water. Her mouth is dry, her palate is burning, and the eyes shine like the eyes of an eagle plummeting to grab its prey. That's it.
Who's the original author of this, by the way?
Božidar Radošević.
I'm not going to try to pronounce that. So
Yeah.
this translation is actually really fucking good. I think it is. I mean, because what you capture here, I imagine, is like some of the like nuance and musicality of the original piece, which I haven't read the original piece, but this is like this like your writing here is playful in a way, right? It's playful, and you're not always opting for the first available, like, deadest, most hyper literal word that's at hand. Does that make sense to you? There are maybe 3 sentences here where there's a little bit of I'm not sure where like there's a little bit of like trying to think of the right word to use, where there's a little bit of disunity, like in terms of the way it's structured or whatever. And I can actually, I'll privately send you those phrases that are a little awkward, but 99% of this is really good.
That would be great, and thanks a lot. I mean, it was a difficult. I mean, it seems quite simple, but it was a difficult piece to translate, and
Oh, I
obviously,
imagine.
I don't have a lot of experience in prose writing in general. I mean, I wrote more plays and everything than prose, so it was difficult from the point of being not up to the task. But it's also quite difficult because it's a bit awkward in Croatian also, and I couldn't just translate it like in the most simple way to seem like it's fluent. It's a
Sure.
strange work, so this was quite an adventure, and I really like this piece a lot in Croatian. I mean, it's actually an unknown writer. I mean, she only she let's say that she was published as many times as I were as I was in Croatian. So it's like, let's say, a dozen times or something in Croatian or Serbian or Bosnian magazines. So it's not a writer that you come across. But I really like her writing, and the style. It's difficult to translate, but yeah, definitely send
No,
me
and some of the word choices that you've made here in
remarks.
translation are like authentically beautiful, like really, really kind of really like gorgeous language choices here, I think. But yeah, no, it's very good. Like I said, since you asked before, I don't know if it was before you started reading or before the reading started, like for us to like point you in the direction of any small things. I
Yeah.
will, after the reading, I think I caught 3 small phrases that were a little awkward, but other than that, I think it's fantastic.
Gecko,
Thanks.
can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is this like a self-enclosed vignette, or is it part of something longer?
It's self-enclosed. I
Okay.
mean, she wrote some longer pieces, but I'm not apt to translating at least for now, translating
Right,
those
okay.
bigger pieces. Yeah. So I just tried translating some of the very short ones, and this was the first one I tried. So,
Okay. Thanks.
yeah.
Gecko, can you spell the name out in the chat, if you can, or if you'd like to?
I can write it. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to attach that to the tweet. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I'm always like thrilled when people read work in translation too. We've had a couple of times. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. But he's anyway, he's done a few translations from, I think, from Spanish to English or from Portuguese to English, and we'll have to have him back since I've forgotten his name completely. Anyway, Bree is up next. Or did I get that right? Is it B or Bree?
It's B. Thank you.
B. I'm sorry about that, B.
That's okay. So I have a few poems here. So I'll just start. This first one is called My Mother is Screaming and I'm Listening to Radiohead. As flames ignite frayed nerves, I hold a match to blistered lips and pray the lights go out. So nobody looks when it ends, but pain screams to be seen as guilt burns into our peripheries. While carving I'm sorry into polished wood, I think who needs a box when the wind carries our ashes so softly. The second one doesn't have a title yet. She offers her feet, calloused and tender, asks me to hold her as she burns. I drown her in tears and wonder why life is so sharp, like sea glass on soles, the elegance of salt in the wound. I stand by an open grave and throw matches into the hollow. My eyes have dried, but the salt still stings my blistered toes. This one's called You Are My Sunshine. She broke my heart every night, singing as the sun went down. I never could understand why she held me so close. A mother is a sharp thing to love. She'll rip your stomach from your throat with the softest words, only because she is falling apart at the thought of her sunshine, wrecked by a world she knows too well. The shadows and dark corners only an angel stripped and thrown to earth can see. The tiny things that wrench our souls from our bodies with such violence that we can never be anything but gray matter, raining down on heads hung on babies' laughter.
Those were
The
beautiful.
next,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Sorry, I have a couple more. The next two are from my new chapbook, which is super exciting. So this one's called A Snack in the Sunshine. You lay there asleep under the willow tree. I hear the carrion birds calling hungry songs into the dawn, wretched screeches as they beat their wings and descend upon your body. I hear flesh tear from bone like sweet babes from mother's wombs. My stomach rumbles at your carcass, stripped down to ivory nakedness, bearing itself to the rising sun, the bits not worth scavenging rot under the hot glare of the day. I crack a bone and suck the marrow. The smell of putrid matter fills my nostrils and I breathe deep, licking my fingers, sitting in the shade of the willow tree. A child screams and I fall asleep, thinking of you in the fragrant heat. This is Blood and Body. We walked all night with shoes full of blood, and at dawn cast them off to dance barefoot over rocks with iron-stained faces, bearing our naked souls and uncalloused toes. Arches fall, tendons collapsing under the weight of standing reverent. Bones grind to dust inside the folds of our skin, and we crawl on knees rubbed raw. Gouge palms on jagged stone as prostrations shatter what's left of tattered limbs. Mangled trunks inch forward like worms, writhing on warm pavement, rolling onto sun-blistered backs, praying to an empty sky until we bite off our tongues, leaving us choking in fountains of our own transubstantiation. I've only got two more, I promise. I won't make you sit through too much more. So this one's also untitled, and it's work in progress. I come from a city of smoke and rot. It stinks of stolen things. Ash choked and soot smeared, it settles into your bones. I come from a city of smog and death. The stench won't go away. You can run far and run fast, but you'll always reek of home. I come from a city that killed itself, hung from a nickel rope. Copper and iron flowed from wrists, but you can't draw blood from stone. I come from a city that refused to die, clawed itself out of its grave. From dead rock to new leaves, look at how we've grown. And my last one is called Reduction. The reduction of a person to a thing possessed, taken, rips the mind from the flesh, leaves jagged holes in a body tainted by violent disregard, dirty knees and stained skirts forcing the mortification of the soul. Blood pumps through filthy veins and air fills putrid lungs as the self withers into a bezoar of a thing. A coalescence of sharp edges that rake against our insides like nails on open sores. Our cavities fill with bile, acid, and blood until we choke on our own bitter humors. Thank you.
Those were beautiful. The language you use is so evocative, and you have a wonderful concision to the way that you write, which is to say that each one of these tiny little stanzas has at least 3 incredibly vivid, incredibly moving images in it. And that's a real rarity in poetry. Like, there can be a real tendency on the part of poets to get super flowery and use so many words to try to pull a simple image, or use way more words than they need to in the pursuit of something profound, right? Every one of these poems is precise, it's concise, and it is so vicious and so painful, and it's so well written. You did a fantastic job with these, and there were everyone in the chat's going wild too. And I am very sorry for interrupting you. I misgauged how long. I looked at the wrong window and thought the scroll bar was at the bottom of the page, basically. But thank you so much. These are fucking fantastic. Up next, and also next to last tonight, is Josh.
Oops. Hey. Yeah, so I didn't have anything to read this week of my own. So I was gonna read one of my favorite John Fonte short stories, because it actually occurred to me that I've talked about Fonte here before, but it seems like a lot of people either hadn't read him, or if they have, they've only read Ask the Dust. So I wanted to read a shorter piece that actually predates that by 3 years. It's from 1936 or thereabouts. I was checking in the UCLA archives, so it's not clear when it was, but anyways, it's a couple years before his first novel as well, which is kind of crazy, I thought anyways, when reading it, because that's 85 years ago. And I don't know, I guess things changed when I was reading stuff when I was 20 and it was 85 years ago. That was 1915. And certainly in 1915, there were very few things like this. Obviously, we're a bit further ahead. So yeah, I'm going to read I'm a Writer of Truth by John Fonte. The truth is often unpleasant, but it must be told. In this case, the truth is that Jenny is not a beautiful girl. She makes a lamentable heroine for this story. She is short and fat, with ripples of fat that wash from her. Her stupidity is beyond the power of my pen. Indeed, she disgusts me. No, that is not the truth, for she does not disgust me. But she does something to me which is not good. She saddens me. When I think of her, a sense of hopelessness possesses me, a feeling that I can do nothing about the inequality between men and women. I do not hate Jenny, but I certainly despise the things for which she stands. As for what those things are, I am unable to say. One evening, out of breath, she ran into my room with her arms extended. She was shrieking with delight, her gray eyes laughing and laughing in triumph. I turned from my typewriter and asked for an explanation. Look, she said to me, on my wrist, look, my boyfriend gave it to me. It was a wristwatch. Jenny, I said, in the name of God, stop saying boyfriend. I loathe the word. I hate it. Jenny's boyfriend is a fellow named Mike Schwartz. He is Jewish, a tremendous man. I have seen him many times, a 200-pounder, strong and silent, who comes out almost every night to see Jenny in her room. His strong, silent strain does not fool me. I personally am neither one nor the other, but I am aware that the quiet strain in big men is invaluable. When he comes up the stairs in his quiet way, I can easily understand what he desires from Jenny. Of course I can understand it. I'm aware that the quiet strain has its uses. About the wristwatch. Jenny is a stenographer in a downtown Los Angeles office. On that very afternoon, she said, Mike Schwartz had come there. Quietly he came, a big man carrying the wristwatch in a tiny box. There he stood, strong and silent. I could visualize the whole thing clearly. I think it monstrous. The truth is, I have to laugh when I think about it. Mike Schwartz asked her what she thought of the watch. It's cute, Jenny said. Cute, oh Lord, what a ghastly description. Cute, what a loathsome word. A wristwatch can be interesting or charming or even beautiful, but never cute, never. Only a person of limited intelligence, such as Jenny, would ever call a wristwatch cute. Mike said, it's for a friend of mine, a girl about to be married. It's a wedding present. This disappointed Jenny, who thought the watch was for her. Without another word, she handed the watch back to him. It was cute, and that was enough. I can see the whole thing. With her nose tilted, she returned the watch. Mike Schwartz started to leave the office. He turned his back and walked towards the door. I'm telling you exactly what Jenny told me. I'm a writer. I see it all very clearly. At the door, he turned, and there were tears in his eyes. Tears in his eyes. Can you imagine that? A strong, silent man, a giant of a man with tears in his eyes. I wish to be truthful, and to me, a man of 40 with tears in his eyes is a jackass. He turned, and there were tears in his eyes, and no doubt tears on his shirt and tie. And he came back, fell on his knees before Jenny, who was fat and 20, and crushed her in his arms. Keep it, Jenny, he gasped. Keep it. I was lying. It's not a wedding present. It's for you. Keep it forever. Forever. Tears in his eyes. What a spectacle. I can visualize it, and I have to laugh and laugh. There he was, a man of 40, strong and silent, sobbing on his knees before a girl 20 years younger than himself. Lord, it's funny. I laugh and laugh. The fool. Such tears would not have fetched me. I should have laughed in his face. Nor did they fetch Jenny. But Jenny is clever, grasping, shrewd. Now the watch became more than cute. It was now a wonderful watch. And she cried too. And there they were, two people crying over a mere wristwatch. And that night, Jenny brought the watch to my room and told me about it, annoyed me with all this nonsense, telling me that Mike Schwartz touched her soul and that she cried for the sweetness of him. I can't help it, Mr. Bandini, she said to me, a writer, an interpreter of human psychology. I refuse to believe Jenny. Furthermore, I refuse to believe she cried for that reason. She is too shrewd, too grasping, too fat for sorrow and tenderness. My theory is that if she wept at all, her tears were tears of joy, of possession, because she owned the watch. It belonged to her now, and she wept in triumph. Let me see this watch, I said. I examined it indifferently. It was a beluga baguette, or some such fodderall. A tiny silver watch, with a bit of silver chain clinging to it. A really absurd watch. A mere toy, for one could scarcely see the watch face, let alone the hands. A joke of a watch, preposterous, and no good at all for seeing the time of day. I turned it over in my palm. There were scratches on the case, wounds made by a penknife, as if someone had rubbed away a monogram. A second-hand watch, unquestionably a second-hand watch. Ha, I said, old merchandise, a second-hand watch, precisely what I expected. The man is a fraud, a hounder, a cheap charlatan. Jenny knew it was second-hand, for she was shrewd indeed. She knew more than that. She had gone to the jeweler and priced the watch. Trust Jenny to do that. Well, I said, what did the jeweler say? She refused to answer me. Rather expensive, she said. Be honest, please, I said. I'm a writer, a man of truth. Hypocrisy is foreign to my nature. How much did the jeweler say it was worth? Quite a bit, she smiled. Well, I said, far be it from me to pry into your prosaic activities. But if you must know the truth, I tell you here and now that I can get a better watch than that for $3.50. A much better watch. I handed the watch back to her. There's little purpose in defending the man before me, I said. Without question, he's a fraud, an unmitigated faker. He amuses me to the nth degree. When you leave this room, I shall start laughing about him. She chained the watch to her wrist without a word, and then she went away. She was hurt. She does not wear the watch now. She hasn't worn it since then. It lies in her dresser drawer in a little box, which I discovered one night when I went through her things in search of cigarettes. The wristwatch is of no significance. True, it was an inexpensive watch, and Mike Schwartz could have afforded better. But Jenny coming to my room and asking me what I thought of it? Ah, now there you have something most significant. It reveals her own suspicions. The common run of writer would have praised the watch elaborately, distorting the truth. But not I. My words stabbed like a hot knife. For in her heart, she knows what Mike Schwartz really wants, and I know too. The watch was a pitiful subterfuge, an insult, but for all that, it is no affair of mine, nor am I greatly interested. There is nothing between Jenny and me. I live on one side of the hall, and she lives on the other, upstairs in the second story of a 2-story house. The other room up here is a bathroom. When first I came here, I thought there might be something to it all. I heard clicking high heels in the hall, and in the next room and in the bathroom, I saw pale blue things hanging out to dry. I touched these, for they pleased me, and their softness and fragrance brought pleasant little things to my imagination, but nothing happened. When I heard the click of high heels, I sat in my room, always in the evening, and pounded violently on the typewriter, hammered it for all I was worth, writing anything that came to mind, just anything, the Gettysburg Address or a Shakespearean sonnet or anything, only hitting the keys with great force so that the sound carried. For there are some who will know a writer is in a room by the noise of his typewriter, and they will like the sound and come to the door and ask him if he writes and what he writes. I mean women. For so it has happened to me many times. For I have lived here and there in this great city, in houses, apartments, and hotels, and I know the business of violently wanging a typewriter is invariably successful, invariably bringing someone, a man or a woman, often a woman who is lonely and curious, and sometimes, oftener than not, a man in a rage who tells you to cut out the racket so we can get some sleep. I lived in this house 3 days before I saw Jenny. The noise of my big machine never lured her, never once caused her to pause at my door and wonder, and perhaps investigate. This surprised me, and I thought of other methods. But in one way or another, all things come from my typewriter, and I could do nothing more, so I hit the keys even harder. This was at night, after I heard her get into bed, but the noise never disturbed her. Apparently, she slept without interruption. Finally, it was she who lured me. It was the telephone. Every evening it rang continuously at the bottom of the stairs, and it was always for her. At length, I weakened, took my aching fingertips away from the keyboard, stood at the door, and listened to the telephone conversation. This time she spoke to a person called Jimmy. "Why, Jimmy, you darling. Oh, Jimmy, you bad boy. Why, Jimmy, you bad, bad boy. Jimmy, you naughty thing." I listened to this sort of thing for a long time, stunned by the stupidity of such banal dialogue. As soon as she hung up, I rushed back to my typewriter and began pounding again. But it was no use. Her feet mounted the stairs and crossed the hall without pause, and then she closed her door. Later, I met this Jimmy. He was a stupid clod, a dandy who wore checkered coats and the neckties of a savage, a bounder who was not impressed by the daring simplicity of my bare feet and house slippers, even though my feet were on Jenny's table and I smoked a pipe larger and longer than any pipe in the city of Los Angeles. Jimmy was a magazine subscription agent. "I sell to all the big shots," he said. "Ann Harding is one of my customers." No doubt he expected me to fall out of my chair at this. I smoked in silence while he and Jenny waited for my comment. "Who?" I said. "Not the cinema actress. Very tragic indeed." Later, Jenny told me even more of this Ann Harding pish-posh. She buys all her magazines from Jimmy, dozens of them. That, I said, is curiously unimpressive. Even the fact that no doubt stories of mine were printed in those magazines fails to arouse my enthusiasm. Here again, the clever urbanity of my remark was scattered on yokel soil. But it didn't matter, for I was not greatly interested in her friendship with Jimmy. And her friendship with Jimmy was no affair of mine. I will tell the truth about my first conversation with Jenny. It was the night the landlady introduced us. I invited Jenny to my room for a glass of wine. In truth, I tried to shock her. She was smoking a cigarette, leaning against the dresser while I poured the wine. I looked at her squarely. "Do you mind if I call you Jenny?" I asked. "The name has an amusing bucolic flavor." "Not at all," she smiled, because she didn't know the meaning of bucolic. I handed her a glass of wine. She said, "Thanks." I was studying her face closely, studying it as a student of mankind, a writer, would study it. This made her a bit uneasy. She raised her glass. "To you," she said. "I know you must be a great writer." I touched her glass and laughed. For the moment, I became aware that, after all, the girl was not completely hopeless. The matter rests with history, I said. I live only in the past and future. We drained the wine glasses. I poured 2 more. Jenny, I said, I am a man of truth. Permit me to make an observation about you. She lifted her glass. Fire away, Mr. Charles Dickens. Give me both barrels. Jenny, I said, I'm like my great predecessor, Huneker. Nothing on the face of the earth annoys me more than a teasing demerit. A demerit? She said. What's a demerit? A doxy, I smiled. Doxy, she said. I'll bite, Professor. What's that? I shook my head sadly. A doxy, I said, is a harden. What's a harden? A harden, I said, is a mopsy. You've got me again, Professor. What's a mopsy? A mopsy is a trull. A trull, she frowned, then laughed. It sounds good, but I'm still at sea. A Delilah, I said. A Messalina, a Jezebel. Come on, she said. Try once more. The dictionary is right there. Look it up. She put down her glass and sprang for the dictionary. Sure enough, she said. Which one? You'd better try trull, I said. And she did. Then she closed the dictionary. But what's this got to do with me? I'm not sure what I answered is true, but no one will deny that it had the sound and force of a startling analysis, a bombshell, and true or false, one exploding simply for effect. Jenny, I said, all womankind is an embryonic trull. The tendency is powerful, and from puberty women must fight it down as they would typhus. She put down her wine glass, stuffed out her cigarette, and walked out of the room. You're horrible, she said. Just awful. But as time went on, nothing I said shocked her. Every night we talked, I doing most of the talking, and she paying no attention to what I said. If you were to ask, there is no word or phrase of mine which Jenny could remember. This is a tragedy. I've said some fine things, sometimes even surprising myself. I'm unable to recall them now, but I remember that at the time they were spectacular, exquisitely phrased, and worth remembering. I have said that I wish to tell the truth. I must pause now to admit that I have failed. I have said that Jenny is fat and not beautiful. That is rather inaccurate, for Jenny is none of those things. No, Jenny is a beauty. She is slender and supple. Her poise is as arrogant as a rose. It is a joy to live near her. The hair on her head is a wonderful thing. It is neither red nor gold, but both, and she combs it with mysterious intricacy, knobbing it at her neck in the manner of Slavic women. She has been married, but now she is divorced. Her husband was a poultry man. This amused me. Jenny, I said, what does a poultry man look like? There was no reason for this. As a matter of fact, I know perfectly well what a poultry man looks like. My uncle in Colorado Springs is in the poultry business, and I worked all summer on his ranch. Mike Schwartz is a widower. I would classify him as handsome. He has a son, a fine boy, 6 years old. Sometimes Mike brings the boy here to see Jenny. The boy calls her Aunt Jenny. He has a wonderfully strong little body, with legs like burnished ivory and curly hair. A fine boy, a son such as I would proudly claim as my own. He is very noisy. Sometimes he wanders into my room and I sit before him, before my typewriter, and allow him to hammer the keys like a monkey. He enjoys this. A fine boy. It is a tragedy that his father is such a dumb cluck. The boy has pronounced literary talent. If he were mine, I would make a literary genius out of him. At 12, I would see to it that he wrote and published an autobiography. It would be by a sheer masterpiece. I would see to that. As it is, the boy will unquestionably grow up to be a boob like his father, a man without poetry who falls on his knees and bawls like a calf as he presents a girl a lump of metal. Jenny grows excited when Schwartz brings the boy. It begins to look as though Schwartz is going to marry her. She has the boy's photograph on her dresser and she worships it. I, for a moment, am pretty sick of that boy's photograph. Every time I enter her room to borrow a cigarette, I must tolerate it shoved under my nose, together with a collection of the lad's bright sayings. They are no doubt very fine, but I'm not interested. I like the boy, he is a fine fellow, but his puerile epigrams bore me. I am not really interested at all. Mike Schwartz comes regularly to see Jenny. Every night before he arrives, Jenny dashes into my room and asks if her dress is fitted correctly, if her hair looks nice, if I like this or that pair of shoes. Mike Schwartz has money, great stacks of it in the bank. He is the owner of a brickyard. Nor is that all. He owns a house in Los Angeles, a mansion in Bel Air, to say nothing of 2 Packards and a Pontiac. Jenny, I said, he may own a brickyard and a castle in Bel Air, but does he have a soul? Has he any depth? I personally have observed him closely, and I failed to discover any beauty in his nature. He is cold, bloodless, money-grubbing Babbitt. He's awfully sweet, Jenny said. A perfectly meaningless judgment. Has he any perception of the finer things in life, the deep, enduring things? He's just sweet, and big as he is, he's gentle as a lamb. I raised my eyes to the ceiling. Ah, Jenny, your naivete saddens me. It makes me want to go blindly into the night and weep on a high, lonely hill for the sorrows of women. The mere fact that Schwartz is gentle proves nothing. A cow is gentle too. What I mean is, does he have any poetry in his blood? He's never written me any. The man is a fraud. He amuses me. He has no more poetry than a stomach pump. I think he's awfully sweet. That's because he owns 2 Packards, a Pontiac, and a house in Bel Air. She only smiled, for she was not even listening to my appraisal of the whole situation. To tell the truth, I am no materialist, but I should like to tell Jenny a few things. I should like to tell her that in my time, I have been an automobile owner. It was a wonderful car, all steel body with high compression oil pump, shatterproof glass, side wings, spotlight, and huge blowout proof tires. Do not misunderstand me. I tell of the Plymouth because I would have you know I have lived, more or less, the life of that blockhead, Mike Schwartz. It didn't last long, for the finance company soon put an end to it, but I didn't mind, for I'd already tired of it, and there were a flock of new stories I wanted to write. Yet I wished I had that car now. For one reason, Jenny is continually relating to me long accounts of the wealth of Mike Schwartz. I am not really interested. I am simply philosophic, a little amused, and a little sad. And yet, in spite of it all, I wish I had my Plymouth. For only an hour, I wish I had it to call my own. I know how it is done. I would take Jenny for a ride in it some evening. As supercilious as possible, I would sit beside her, my hands on the wheel, and saying nothing, not a word. I would let the Plymouth do all the talking. We would drive to Santa Monica and park the car on a hill where the sea meets the stars. With an indifferent flip of my fingers, I would throw the switch on the dashboard, and out of the belly of the machine, the radio would respond, emitting the frog croakings of Bing Crosby. I would remain strong and silent and doing nothing. No need to tell Jenny her hair dizzied me, that the look in her gray eyes was enough to make me forget, for a little while, prose and plots and such wearisome stuff. The whole thing would be machine made, but for a little while, for only an hour, it would be enough. The Plymouth and Bing Crosby would move Jenny to the depths of her soul, and for a little while it would be all right. Soon enough, I would grow tired of it in an hour perhaps, and we would drive back to the city. Later, Jenny would tell others she knew a writer with a Plymouth. Not a mere writer, but a writer with a Plymouth. It wouldn't matter, though.
Josh, I experienced a profound sense of deja vu while you were reading that. And I can't figure out whether it's because I've read the story before myself, but I don't think I've read much, if any, Fante, or if you've read it before, maybe, or if somebody else read it at one point in time. But especially the first third of that about the wristwatch, I had a real vivid sense of like, I've read or heard this story before. I'm not sure. Did you at some point, maybe?
No, I don't think this one. No, I read.
Huh.
Yeah, no, not that one. I don't think I read Fonte. I talked about it a lot here. I actually hadn't read that one in a while, so it wasn't really a great reading of it. And but I just like the repressed nature of it, and also the halfway point of it all being kind of a lie, and in fact he's in love with a woman, which is maybe obvious even earlier on in the story.
Right.
But yeah,
maybe I read it in college or something then. But anyway, I can definitely see how Fonte has influenced your writing from this. I can tell that there are like twists and turns to the kind of person you write about is remarkably similar to the kind of person that Fonte is writing about here, right? You obviously have your own very unique style, but I can feel like I can like sense the like camaraderie at the heart of your work and his.
Yeah, Yeah, the kind of characters I write about. Yeah, those other people. But thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Sorry, it was longer than I remembered, to be honest. I would have read something shorter, but
No, that's okay, Josh. Thank you so much. It's always really interesting to see like who's inspired by who, and feel, because I feel like, especially with regulars like you, I've got a real sense for what you write, but it's always like really revelatory to see like what your influences are, right?
that's what I'm obsessed with authors I like. I'm always looking at who they're influenced by. Derek and I talk about it a lot. That's why he calls like literature a conversation, I guess, in some of our talks, which it is a conversation over, centuries and whatnot. But yeah.
Thank you, Josh. So I had said that there was only one person left, but Matt snuck in under the wire here via DM with Rudy. Are you with us still, Matt?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I feel bad about the other time I was here, and I sort of just kind of lurked in the background and watched you guys. But
no,
I decided I'd read a couple
just as
pieces
welcome.
this time.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. So I thought, this is Misery Loves Company, so I figured I'd read my misery tourism piece first, which was at the end of August, I believe. So let me pull that up for you guys here. All right. Buying beer for underage kids. I meet groups of 16 or 17-year-olds a block away from the Circle K, and they hand me too many crumpled bills to buy them a case of this or a mixed bag of 6 packs to split with their parents. To split when their parents think they're at a friend's house. The cashier never takes a second look at me, just another junkie or drunk pushing his paycheck or welfare into the hands of macro breweries. I shuffle back outside with the excess money in my pocket, hand the cold cans or glittering glass bottles to the shaggy-haired kids or girls with too tight tops, and we all disappear until next time. The money either goes into my arm or into a handle that goes down too easy, and the day bleeds or blurs into the night. Soon I'm standing in an unlit alley, breathing fire and smoke into the dark air, the dragon all the brave middle-class knights want to slay after watching their kids puking into their perfectly white porcelain toilet. So there's that one. So the next one I'm going to read, or the next two I'm going to read actually, are from my debut collection that just came out. I don't know if you guys can see that in front of the screen or not, but so it just came out with Alien Buddha. So I'm going to read 2 pieces from that. The first one is actually the first piece in the collection, which was one of 2 poems that was published in issue 3 of Outcast Press. So this one's called Crop Rotation by me. All right, so I'm not sure why I'm standing in front of the class thinking about my vegetable gardens, but somehow it makes sense. Looking at Alex itching to get to the bathroom or parking lot for the next drag off a cigarette or cloud from his vape, and wondering if that was his dad 20 years ago. Sarah wears long sleeves in a 90-degree classroom, and I wonder what's hiding under them. Is this pain handed down from their parents, or are those inherited scars seared in her mind as well? Watching Ray slap a tray over Seth's head in the lunchroom makes me think about his father and what kind of belt he might wear, passing down punishments that aren't deserved. In gardening, they always say crop rotation is key. You don't want the diseases to catch up with the plants season after season. I wonder if they're onto something. All right. And the last one, not going in order with the collection, this one's sort of in the middle. It's called Green Grass, and it's another micro, and it was published in issue 5 of Bear Creek Gazette. One of the comments on it, I guess, was transgressive gardening. So we'll see what you guys think, I guess. All right. The sound of horns and sight of blacktop streets have replaced silent country nights in the green grass. I miss the country, but the decision to move was logical. I traded my humble country life to double my salary by cramping myself into a downtown apartment in a buzzing city. Young minds are pliable, but I miss the green, the chutes near fences, the taste of crisp lettuce leaves, and the perfume of a spring bloom. I remember quiet fields laced with a harmony of birds' voices across sun-soaked days and running fingers along newly trellised cucumber tendrils on a dew-draped morning. Now I'm stuck waiting for the crosswalk signal, eating greasy pizza, or enduring long bus trips to the grocery store for stuffed bags and cramped seats, or walks with choking exhaust and lingering cigarette smoke. My reality is crowded with car horns and hectic conversations between people I don't know over hard blacktop streets. One night I noticed grass between cracks in the sidewalk pavement near my apartment. I rushed upstairs for a metal spoon and pried up chunks of pavement to give the grass room. The next night I came with purchased seeds and sprinkled them in the fissures, snuck water in the mugs when nobody was looking, and nourished my discovery. Months went by, fertilizing and watering by night and watching green steadily grow during daylight hours. People walked down on one aisle or the other around my row of trellis cucumber plants, cutting the sidewalk in two, and tomato catching sun just right on the streets. People scurry by with their heads in their phones, and I smile at my patch of green cut in the city sidewalk and think how many more pieces of pavement I'll pry up next month. All right, and that's the end of that one. Sorry, that was my first live reading.
No, Matt, you killed it. I had no idea that was your first time reading. All three of these pieces are fantastic. I want to talk about the misery tourism one because we published it. I love the turn this piece takes at the very end. I love the way it goes from this like really like graphic, hard-bitten kind of realism to becoming like this. He becomes like this mythic demonic figure, and that turn is so good. Like to go from being like the junkie who just like buys booze for kids to becoming like this image of the devil basically, and the parents, and he's breathing fire. Like, oh my god, it's so good. And it's such a great and unexpected twist. And your last one was downright fucking wholesome. But in a really good way, in a really fucking like oddly life and soul affirming way. And we don't often get like life and soul affirming pieces on Misery Loves Company. So I thank you for that as well. Especially at the end of what's been a particularly, I think, dark night of pieces. It's a nice one to almost end on too.
Gotcha. I have one coming up in expat in January, and maybe after that point I'll read that one too. I think that one be a little bit maybe harder than that last one, I think.
No, awesome. Come back anytime. These were three fantastic pieces. And actually, I didn't mention the crop rotation one, but that one has a really powerful, all three of these actually have really powerful pivots at the end. And I think that's really like, I don't know if that's something that you like, that try for and very much consider like part of your style, but they're all like, they have this sense of like slice of life simplicity, and then suddenly they explode outward in a way that gives them additional meaning and significance, and I dig that. So thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, the line you have there at the end of the one we published, the dragon that all the brave middle class knights want to slay. That's such a great, like, man, I'm jealous of that line. I'll just say that. I don't want to belabor it too much. I'm really jealous of that line. It's fucking amazing.
Thank you.
Well, Rudy, while you're unmuted, you're the last one up tonight, and you have two possibilities that you've written in the document here.
So speaking of dragons, I did want to read from a favorite author of mine. I guess he's somewhat of a favorite author, maybe sort of. He's an inspirational author. I'll say that. I don't know if he's my favorite, but he's inspirational to me. I don't know if people have heard of Robert Jordan, who's famous for The Wheel of Time, that started with The Eye of the World, and goes into various, I think some 14 or 15 fucking books. They're all like 800 pages, by the way, fantasy, because that's how I roll. But he's been really, his world building and stuff. And I know there's a lot of talk about world building here in a lot of these conversations, but his world building is very choice. I'll say it's choice, and it's inspired me a lot of the themes and stuff he plays with in his work. So I'm going to read some of his work. So can anyone just shout out and give me a number between we'll say 10 and 9,000? Anybody?
I'll let the crowd
800.
do this.
I heard 800. That was the first thing I heard. Okay, so let me go there. And I'm just gonna read until the cows come home or whatever. I don't know. Fuck. Anyway, this is Robert Jordan. For the 100th time, Egwene said wearily, "We aren't dark friends." Perrin tensed. Sometimes the denial brought a lecture delivered into a grating near monotone on confession and repentance, leading into a description of the questioner's methods of obtaining them. Sometimes it brought the lecture and a kick. To his surprise, this time Bayar ignored it. Instead, the man squatted in front of him, all angles and sunken hollows, with the axe across his knees, the golden sun on his cloak's left breast, and the 2 golden stars beneath it glittered into the lantern light. Taking off his helmet, he set it beside the lantern. For a change, there was something besides disdain or hatred on his face, something intent and unreadable. He rested his arms on the axe handle and studied Perrin silently. Perrin tried not to shift under the hollow-eyed stare. "You are slowing us down, dark friend, you and your wolves. The Council of the Anointed has heard reports of such things, and they want to know more, so you must be taken to Amador and given to the questioners, but you are slowing us down. I had hoped we could move fast enough, even without the remounts, but I was wrong." He fell silent, frowning at them. Perrin waited. Bayar would tell him when he was ready. "The Lord Captain is caught in the cleft of a dilemma," Bayar said finally. "Because of the wolves, he must take you to the council, but he must reach Camelin too." Or I'm sorry, okay. "We have no spare horses to carry you, but if we continue to let you walk, we will not reach Camelin by the appointed time. The Lord Captain sees his duties with a single-minded vision, and he intends to see you before the council." Egwene made a sound. Bayar was staring at Perrin, and he stared back, almost afraid to blink. "I don't understand," he said slowly. "There is nothing to understand," Bayar replied. "Nothing but idle speculation. If you escaped, we would not have time to track you down. We don't have an hour to spare if we are to reach Camelin in time. If you frayed your ropes on a sharp rock, say, and vanished into the night, the Lord Captain's problem would be solved." Never taking his gaze from Perrin, he reached under his cloak and tossed something on the ground. Automatically, Perrin's eyes followed it. When he realized what it was, he gasped. A rock. A split rock with a sharp edge. "Just idle speculation," Bayar said. "Your guards tonight also speculate." Perrin's mouth was suddenly dry. "Think it through. Light, help me. Think it through, and don't make any mistakes. Could it be true? Could the White Cloak's need to get to Camelin quickly be important enough for this? Letting suspected dark friends escape? There is no use trying that way." He did not know enough. Bayar was the only White Cloak who would talk to them, aside from the Lord Captain Bornhold, and neither was exactly free with information. Another way. If Bayar wanted them to escape, why not simply cut their bonds? If Bayar wanted them to escape, Bayar, who was convinced to his marrow that they were dark friends, Bayar, who hated dark friends worse than he did the Dark One himself, Bayar, who looked for any excuse to cause him pain because he had killed 2 White Cloaks. Bayar wanted them to escape? If he had thought his mind was racing before, now it sped like an avalanche. Despite the cold, sweat ran down his face in rivulets. He glanced at the guards. They were only shadows of pale gray, but it seemed to him they were poised, waiting. If he and Egwene were killed trying to escape and their ropes had been cut on a rock that could have been lying there by chance, the Lord Captain's dilemma would be solved, all right? And Bayar would have them dead the way he wanted them. The gaunt man picked up his helmet from beside the lantern and started to stand. "Wait," Perrin said hoarsely. His thoughts tumbled over and over as he searched in vain for some way out. "Wait, I want to talk. Help comes." The thought blossomed in his mind, a clear burst of light in the midst of chaos, so startling that for a moment he forgot everything else, even where he was. Dapple was alive. Elias, he thought at the wolf, demanding without words to know if the man was alive. An image came back. Elias, lying on a bed of evergreen branches beside a small fire in a cave, tending a wound in his side. It all took only an instant. He gaped at fire, and his face broke into a foolish grin. Elias was alive. Dapple was alive. Help was coming. I think I'll stop there. Robert Jordan.
Rudy, are you a big fan of Andy Kaufman, Rudy?
Jim Carrey is, yeah, sure.
Rudy, so you've seen Man on the Moon, right? The Andy Kaufman biopic.
I actually haven't. No, I haven't. I know Jim Carrey's in it, and yeah, I know I have kind of a hard on for Jim Carrey.
Where Andy Kaufman's on SNL and he walks on stage and he's like, "I'm gonna play a song for you," and then he takes out a record and puts it in a record player and turns it on and just stands there stone faced while the record plays. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I thought about that when you were reading Robert Rohr. While you were reading Robert Jordan, but I sure as fuck thought of Andy Kaufman letting that record spin.
Fuck yeah. No, Robert Jordan is not only does he let the record spin, but he lets it ride and ride and ride and ride and ride.
I'm just sad that there were no vivid descriptions of women's clothing in the excerpt that you randomly flipped to.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I guess we got lucky or unlucky depending on how you look at it, but Robert Jordan is known for like describing vividly like particularly women's garments, and nothing like obscene or like salacious or anything, just like the texture, like the landscape, if you will, of like a sock or something. He's widely I guess criticized and also loved for that. So yeah, but what strikes me about his world building is like how much, like, I really love authors that
Just a second, Rudy, is my face bleeding?
Is it? I think it is.
Put my hand on it's bloody.
Oh,
okay, well, that's good. Man, maybe it's like the ghast of Robert Jordan.
He slapped you. He's like, it's like that Ghost Hunter show where the ghost slaps the guy or whatever.
Anyway, since I'm bleeding, maybe I'll wrap it up.
Stigmata.
So yeah, so sorry. So I think we're going to call it a night there, at least for the reading portion of the show. But as usual, I'm going to leave the Zoom call up for a while if people want to socialize, bullshit, whatever. But if you're watching this on YouTube, and you made it all the way through 2 hours capped with Robert Jordan.
Yeah.
You should maybe consider actually attending one of these things. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We tweet the link out around that time. Our Twitter account is @MiseryTourism. Anyone's welcome to come. Anyone's welcome to lurk. Anyone's welcome to read. And that's it. We're going to call it a night there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who read. This was another fucking fantastic reading.